Hey, how you doing? I am Marcus Johnson, consultant, entrepreneur, musician, professor, lawyer, all this other stuff that I do, right? I'm reading a story on Harry Pace. You should find out information on Harry Pace, a kind of very social impact leader, or someone who was a social impact leader in Chicago way back in the day. First African American record company, kind of mentored John Johnson, who did Ebony magazine and a bunch of others. Great story on that. So, but the guy did everything. He went from doing a record company, then went to law school, et cetera, et cetera. And then, was responsible for the desegregation of housing in Chicago. So I'm going to leave it there because we're not here to really talk about that. It's just a thing when you hear somebody talk about the different things that they do. It's not necessarily just to be like, this is what I'm doing. Also to let you know that anything I can do, you can do better, especially with the RIDE conference, rolling out magazine, Months and Steed, and everything that we're doing here to empower you to take control and be engaged in your own life. Now, today we're talking about the idea of research tools and why they're important. Research, and I'm just going to put like on the side here, tools, because this is the real thing here. Why is research important? Now, I can tell you this. Research is important on so many different levels, most of which is the idea. Let's just start at a bare bones basic. Let's say you have an idea. And if you read, if you go back to my other seminar on the SBA and leveraging and branding and what that is, remember, my idea is that we're coming from idea to organization to brand. That's where you develop the brand, to movement, right? And excuse me for running out of space here, movement. Now, imagine your idea is company X, and you go out and you put all this time and money and energy into company X, but you didn't reserve your trademark. And you find out after the fact that there's another company that's named Company X, and they have a federal trademark on Company X. Now, you've set up all these deals, you have invested money, and let's say you probably won't have institutional investors because they're going to make you do show that you have trademarks on this. If you see the Shark Tank, often you'll hear Mark Cuban or Damon John talk about like, well, do you have a trademark for this? Do you have the intellectual property around it? And before they get that, before they invest in your company, they're going to make sure that you have your intellectual property rights protected. All right. So that is absolutely number one. But if you go and do this, right, and there's a company X already, and you have company X here, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to you will have to forfeit a large sum of your money, or you'll have to come up with some type of licensing deal or something in order to make sure that you can use your own company stuff. You're like, well, Marcus, but it's mine, it's my thoughts, but you didn't preserve it. You didn't protect it. That's why we're here. And when you're in school, what we're talking about in that concept of things is not just brand building, it is called intellectual property. So you'll hear people talk about it in terms of IP, intellectual property. Now, you hear people talk about copyright, you hear folk talk about trademark, and you hear folk talk about patents, right? And there are other things like trade secrets and things like that, the way you can reserve it. But what I want to make sure that you understand is it is federal. Now, I wasn't thinking that I was going to get into a discussion of intellectual property in this, in this part of the seminar, in this part of the series. But you need to know that if you have a written work or music work in a fixed and tangible form, you get a federal copyright. Now, Marcus, can I just send my song to myself in a envelope, and am I protected? Well, you can send it to yourself in an envelope if you want to, but no, you're not protected under those scenarios. That is not a federally recognized registration of a copyright that you can defend in court. It's called prima facie evidence against someone else. Your copyright stands as that. If you send it in a letter, I don't care if it's not trademarked. I don't care if it's stamped, at the post office of, the church of whoever, right? That's me just saying you don't want to rest on an envelope. It doesn't matter. It is not evidence in a copyright claim. The only way to protect your stuff in the prima facie way, it stands on the face. That's what prima facie means, is to get a federal copyright. All you have to do is basically pay like $20 per copyright, per song. You can figure out different ways to do compilations. $20? It's almost like, the whole idea of making sure how many people have spent more money after the fact cleaning something up when they could have spent $20 to get a copyright on their material. Next is like your trademark. Now, when we're talking about Company X, let's say Company X has, actually this here is the name Company X. So let me tell you this. My company's name is, I'm going to put it here, is Flow, for the love of. Now, I have a federal trademark on Flow. That means I use it in trade. I have to use it in public. It has to be novel. It can't be something else that somebody else has, and it can't be protected already from somebody else. So you send your application in, which is about $325, maybe a little bit more now. You send it into the USPTO.gov, or you get a patent attorney to help you out with this kind of thing. Or if you are in Washington, D.C., or a place where you have a law school that has a patent and trademark institute, they'll work with you for nothing. Or if you're in the arts, you can go to Lawyers for the Arts, and they can help you get your trademark done. I mean, George Washington School of Law has a business clinic that does things like this as well. The main idea, or SBA, we talked about it in the branding seminar that I did, that's session 2, video 1 of, leveraging the SBA in your branding. The SBA can help you find their trademark partner in your particular area. Why do you want to do this? Well, about 8 years ago, with my wine brand, I had a grocery store, a multi-billion-dollar grocery store, that tried to cancel my trademark in Flow. And I had my wine around the country, et cetera, et cetera. Now, they had a state trademark in the state of Arizona on Flow, and for the love of. And so we had to go through the whole process because it's like a trial, different than a court trial, but it is a trial, and they were trying to cancel my copyright. Now, had they done that, imagine the investment in Flow, imagine my investors, and like, oh my God, we would have lost everything. But what ended up happening? Federal trumps state in this particular mark. All they had to do as a multi-billion-dollar company is spend $350, let's say it's $1,500 for a multi-billion-dollar company to do the research to say this already exists, or that we need to make sure that we protect this federally, because if we don't, somebody can come in and grab it from us, or have a similar idea like I did and protect it before we do. And then their federal right trumps our state right. What's that called? Research. This whole thing that we're talking about is research. Why am I teaching you about intellectual property? Because if you don't do the research for your brand and your ideas, hey man, I got this dope beat and this dope song, and this inspired me. Wait, a song inspired you to do something else, and it sounds kind of very similar like that song? Well, we saw that in Pharrell and Robin Thicke's case against Marvin Gaye's estate. And what ended up happening was you have substantial similarity in access. That's the standard under copyright that you can lose a case. If you have a copyright, federal copyright, you can then go in and say, this song sounds similar to this. They had access to it because it was a Make It Happen there was an infringement upon it. Excuse me for stuttering so much, but there was an infringement upon it. They brought it in and said, "You're going to pay me." And what ended up happening? They ended up losing that case, Pharrell and Robin Thicke. Research. Then you have to find out, even if you have a copyright, who owns the proper copyright. And then maybe you can talk to them about licensing it, because literally that cost them millions of dollars. They probably could have gotten a clearance for $20,000, $50,000. Imagine that. I'll pay you $50,000. I don't know what's going to happen, but here, imagine if they had paid $200,000 versus millions of dollars. Basically, it would have been worth them to pay any amount up to what they spent in legal fees and the actual settlement cost ahead of time. What does that take? It takes research. You can't be lazy and build your brand, because when you're irresponsible, it ends up being reckless, and recklessness can cost you your company, man. I mean, I almost feel like I don't even need to speak anymore, because that's it. Why wouldn't you research? But that's just to start your company. That's just when you have the idea. Now, in the seminars, I talk about the three functions of a company. You have marketing and sales, you have operations, and you have management. Now, management is administrative work, making sure that your books are done properly. When I say books, making sure that your financial statements, when you take accounting, you'll learn about cash flow statements, you'll learn about profit and loss statements, and you'll learn about balance sheets. That's part of what's under management. Human resources is going to be under management. How we figure out who needs to do what. If you're an artist and, or let's say brand ambassador, or now an influencer, you may have a manager. Your manager is going to work with you to make sure that all of your books are taken care of, that your quarterly taxes, and this is very important, take this. If you're an entrepreneur, make sure that your accountant is making payments on what your income is on the quarterly. Whatever your estimated payments are each quarter. You hear people talk about quarterlies? That's quarterly. You talk about returns and corporate returns and getting a refund. Why does that happen? Because your estimated payments that you made based on your flow of income coming in each month. I made $1,000 or $10,000 in January, $10,000 in February. I made $10,000 in March. Therefore, $30,000 of income. I think my taxes on that quarter is going to be your tax rate times $30,000. You send that check in, or your accountant or your business manager sends that in. And then each quarter you do that. And at the end of the year, when you do your yearlies and you put it on a tax form 1120, or you do a Schedule C, then you may get a refund. But this is all here. Is this necessary? It's necessary, because when you make that money as an influencer, when you get that brand endorsement from somebody, when that TikTok video goes viral, when you come up with a new shoe concept or some type of concept for fashion, or you have a new, process after med school where you solve a problem with a prosthetic, and some technological advance, you're going to make money. You're going to want to make sure that this is taken care of. And although I know Biggie Small says, I don't worry about that, my accountant handles that, that is your way into the financial toilet. That's not what I want for you. What classes do you need to take in order to make sure you can avoid that? Accounting, number one. Accounting is the blood work of your company. What does all this take? Now, you may say this isn't research, this is analysis. But research and analysis are kind of hand in hand, because if you don't know what your business is doing, then you don't know what it's doing in the greater marketplace. Your business is this. The greater marketplace is this. You want to get bigger pieces of this as you continue to grow, and hopefully you get the entire market, right? Look at an Amazon. Who would have thought that? Or Tesla with their new deal with Hertz and 100,000 cars that made, Tesla now $1 trillion company. That's a big part of this market here for electric cars. So it is possible that you can get bigger and bigger, but you have to do the analysis to make sure you understand where you fit into the marketplace. That's just on the management side. Then the operation side, that's your product. So that's where you put things together. That's how you build it. Imagine going to the Tesla plant or to SpaceX and seeing what they're doing, how they put it together. Industry standards, you hear things like best practices. Boeing, we've seen the heights of best practices, and through the whole, Max jet issue, we now see that it is, they may be facing some problems, right? In their operations, how they put things together, how they integrate their operating system into their 737 Supermax long distance planes. And it resulted in people's deaths, which then has a huge hit on your brand. So what I need to do is do the research and analysis to make sure that my actual operating system works so that my jets don't go too fast on takeoff and cause disruption of airflow over the wings and it crashes. I love airplanes, right? So that's just one example of that. How you produce music. Well, I want it to sound this way. Okay, how does that fit into the greater scheme of things? Is your music hitting anybody? Is your fashion hitting anybody? Are you putting together clothes that people actually want to wear and make them feel a certain way? That's in your operations of how you're putting it together, your product, what you're designing. If Tesla made cars that were electric, but they looked horrible, and we've seen pretty close, their competitors come out with some things where you're like, it may give me 1,000 miles to the charge, let's say, but I'm not driving that because I don't feel cool in it. You get in a Tesla, pretty much any model, and it's kind of cool, right? That's why people pay money for gas, engines right now still, because it feels a certain way. It sounds a certain way. That all goes into the operations point. But let me ask you a question. How do you figure that out? Research. So these are places where when you're taking classes that may allow you to look at statistics and regression analysis. Business decision sciences is what it's called. Now, I don't know on the undergrad level how many classes they have like that, but as you begin to go into your MBA and certification process, that is going to be key for you. Decision sciences is where it's at. Putting information in number sets, doing probability, understanding regression analysis to be able to say, this is what the market information is telling me. My cars need to look this way or I'm not going to sell it. Or, my music we need to have our music in this type of format because the trends are going this way. You need to be able to understand the numbers. Then you're going to need to understand how to use things like Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets, because you're going to plug that information in and you're going to what they call scrub it and clean it. Make sure it fits and it's appropriate for what you're doing in your business. Again, an Excel course is going to be good for that. Any kind of spreadsheet and data analysis course is going to be great for that. So those are your types of classes. Any kind of management, finance, yeah, because like I said, the management side, what it's going to cost. Is this cost effective? Are we still using aluminum for airplanes when everybody's going carbon? Can we make airplanes, at a cost effective rate with aluminum versus Airbus doing carbon? These are questions that you're going to ask. But how are you going to find this out? Research and analysis. It goes down to, and this may sound funny, it kind of goes all the way down to the concept of even like dating. Because, I'm sorry, when you are trying to, impress someone and show them who you are, what do you really need to do, or how you would benefit them in their lives, right? Because that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about dating. What do you have to do? Research. I believe that, personal dynamics and family dynamics are the original entrepreneurship anyway. So when you're looking at how you can manage your family and then the things that you need in order to make your significant other in your core unit, in your community happy, what do you have to do? Research. Well, Marcus, that takes the feeling out of it. Absolutely not. I would argue that when you figure out what you need to do and you give it to that person through your research and your compassion and your understanding, then they're going to reciprocate the same and return the favor. Guess what? Same thing happens in branding. They're analogous. They work together. If you show me that you put something together that I like, that is appealing to me, that fulfills a need for me, then I know you care about me. You're considerate to my needs and wants and my pain points. And I'm going to not only support you, but when you give it to me consistently, I'm going to be your number one salesperson in the world. That's marketing and sales, you all. We can come up with all these different, marketing is how you spend your money and marketing is your promo material. No, it's not. Marketing is MKGT, science. It's psychology. And sales is conversion. How you convert these people, the science of your target market. And sales is how you convert them into it. So you may use flyers, maybe if you still do that. You may use Google ads. You may use Facebook ads. You may use flyers and a mixture of video content on Pinterest. You may go to neighborhoods. You may use Clubhouse. How are you going to find out what you need to do? Research. Where, Marcus, well, I don't know where to do it. Goes back to the video on how to leverage the SBA. Get a SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives, volunteer and mentor to come in and work with you to look at your numbers to say, you know what, I was in marketing. These numbers don't look exactly the way I want them to. You need to not use paper flyers because they're cost inefficient. And what I would say is, let's figure out a way to come up with a digital marketing strategy between Facebook, because that's where your core audience is, or TikTok, because that's where your core audience is, or IG, because that's where your core audience is, or we're going to divide it into three because your audience is split equally across all three of those. Those are the questions that you have to ask as it relates to research and how it turns into branding. Because if you find out what your people want, and they will tell you if you actually just ask them, they will be your fans forever. They will take your brand beyond, I thought I had it up here. Here it is. You will take them beyond brand and become a movement. Apple, Virgin, Tesla, Disney, Netflix, Patron. Let's see what else. Jay-Z, Beyonce, they're brands because they consistently bring fire. Puffy, right? J-Lo, who's an actor that Tom Cruise has been doing it forever. Why? You know what you're getting. You know what you're getting. Are there better actors than him? I don't know, but it doesn't matter because he knows who he needs to get to and take care of in order to provide a service and get paid $20, $30 million a film. I can't be mad at him. He figured it out. His team figured it out. Michael Jordan, Brand Jordan. I have the team. They're wearing my uniforms inside my arena, pushing my shoes and taking pictures of me on the golf course for my other shoes and equipment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Oh yeah, and if I take off my shirt, I have to deal with Hanes because I'm a North Carolina boy, et cetera, et cetera. What is that about? It is taking advantage and consistently giving something that your consumers want. Fire. Fire. You bring fire, you will always have somebody supporting you. Now, the other side of this is you have to be careful when you make mistakes. And you may have to get someone that deals with, public relations and damage control. What are you going to take? What courses are you going to take in there? Again, anything dealing with sociology, anything dealing with psychology, anything dealing with like a sales and public relations communication component. Digital communications is very important here. Even when we're talking about how you take and find using the ad manager on Facebook, if you go in the ad manager, you can put in a certain list of things of the people that you think are your core people or core target market. It'll tell you where they are in a particular city. You can take that, click on and make a custom audience and follow that around the world. I need people like this in Milan, Italy. Then you start looking at how those people react to your product. What's that called? It's called research. And then you just tweak it the way you need to tweak it. Well, Marcus, how do I tweak something? It's my music. How do I tweak it for, Milan? Ever heard of a remix? What do you think the remixes are all about? Hip hop here, club music here, EDM here, jazz groove here. And because you own the copyright to it, because you did your research and made sure that you federally protected your music through a copyright, guess who's getting the licensing fees? You are. But what does it take? It takes research. Now, as we're looking at sales and marketing, your sales and marketing really is the who, what, where, when, why, and how of your company. And I really believe in the fact that you're trying to find the science behind who your target market is. It's not just how you spend your money. It's finding out what finding out the attributes of the people and characteristics of the people who might buy your product. And then figuring out how to get it to them in the way they need to hear it, when they need to hear it. That's marketing. Your sales is then using that to actually come up with things that convert them into your clients. Now, I'm going to tell you, as we're talking about like how things and not doing your research on industry trends, and I have a couple for you. Let's look at, there was a company called Kodak. And I don't know if you're old enough to remember them, depending upon your age and watching this video. But Kodak had the market on film. They had the market on cameras, everything. They didn't go digital because they wanted to protect their trademark in true film. And they never thought that digital cameras would get to a point, and I don't know how they figured that, where digital cameras would get to a point where they would actually compete with Kodak film. Now I'm taping this, and I need to get an endorsement from them on this. I'm taping this on a Samsung Note Ultra 20, and it looks amazing. I have a Symantec, whatever it is, microphone here. That's this little crazy thing that you hear going Bluetooth into the Ultra. Kodak doesn't really exist anymore because they missed the opportunity to transition and get to the next promised land. Just because you have a trademark in something doesn't mean that you only protect it. You need to evolve with your market, seeing where they're gonna go, taking chances on what's going next. Look at Facebook buying, when Facebook bought IG, what was that about? I mean, look at how many people are on IG now. They got it at a steal. They got it for $1 billion back in the day, right? I mean, it's worth multiples of that right now, but they had the foresight not to say we're Facebook and we will just squash you as Facebook. Nah, man, I got you, and I have enough money to buy you and bring you in my thing. Oh, what's that? Oh, so we can have encrypted conversations? No problem. 40, 50, 60-year-olds that are the mainstay on Facebook, and then the 30 to 40-year-olds that are on IG, and now you have everybody that's like on a WhatsApp. I'm going to get them all. I'm not going to be so myopic in my view, so singular in my view, that I miss the opportunity to grow. And if you look at the music industry, let's talk about trends. We went in the last 30, 40 years from vinyl being the number one way that we heard music and radio, to cassettes, to CDs, to peer-to-peer, to digital downloads. And now we're sitting in the streaming era right now, People are streaming from their phones, into their cars, into Bluetooth speakers. You're at the beach now. You don't have to be without music. You can go to the pool now. You can set up your own vibe there. You cannot have a super stereo system. Go get a $119, charge from JBL and a candle from Flow, of course, my company. And, you have an experience. That is how the industry has trended. What's next? I don't know, but I know how to figure it out or try to see, and it's called research. I'm not asking you to do anything I'm not doing right now with my wine brand. From year to year, we had a Moscato last year. We're about to put out our 2022, and it's really our 2019 vintage, but in 2022, it takes a couple years, fermenting, bottling, all that kind of stuff. But we don't have a Moscato this year. We have a Rosé because we did the research, and the research said, hey, look, go this way. Now, I still think we might need to put a Moscato out, but then you have a limited amount of money. So you're making decisions, you're making decisions with limited resources. I think that the definition of econ traditionally is the allocation of scarce resources over insatiable wants. That's why you have supply and demand. I'm going to say that again. The dictionary definition or the textbook definition of economics is the allocation of scarce resources, money, time, etc., over insatiable wants. Meaning, when I look out here out of the office and I'm looking out there and seeing buildings and seeing lights and seeing the malls, man, people are always wanting something new. But you don't have all the money in the world to make sure that they get exactly what they want. Therefore, you have to do what? You have to research, man. And, I hate to be that, in your head, but that's it. Other people that missed out on it, Blockbuster Video, who did they lose out to? Netflix. They were so vested in DVDs that they were like, we'll never lose to them. Now, let's look at a new trend. Netflix is now competing with Disney and Amazon and Apple Plus. Why? Because now the people that are delivering the content are also now creating the content. So now you have Amazon Prime, where it's an Amazon Prime studio. That's great. But what did they do? They researched. They said, hey, look, they looked at their numbers. They said, what are we doing? Where are we giving away money? Where are opportunities for us to make more money? Content creation. If we don't have to license films from Warner Brothers, then we can boom. Or you look at somebody like Comcast that then goes in and buys Universal. Why? Because they want it to be the streaming service, the delivery service, and the content creation service. Brilliant. I love it. Disney, very similar scenario. And Disney even took it a step further, along with somebody like a Comcast, because they have the Disney parks. Here's your experience that we created online in these great movies, but I'm going to bring it to the physical for you. Come down, bring your family for whatever, of course, post-COVID, socially distanced, all that kind of stuff. But get this physical experience of our brand. How did they figure that out? It was a dream of Walt Disney, but his brother Roy was the one that did the research and kept everything together. Why did they do Cinderella's castle versus, something with Snow White? I'm sure they did the research. Why are they now having these great hotels come in there with these awesome golf courses? They did the research. Research and branding. You do the research and give the people what they want. You find out who the people are, where they are, why they are, how they are. Then you communicate to them where they need it, when they want it, how they want it. And then you give it to them on a consistent basis. That's branding mixed with research, research-based branding. And then when you give it to them consistently, they will turn it into a movement. Classes that you need for this. business sciences, decision sciences, any kind of real marketing class in your business school. Look at, like, there may be some adjunct professors teaching courses and these kind of things, but you want a marketing course where you understand the science of marketing, not just here's how I'm gonna, promote. There's a difference between sales. And if you can find a sales class, and there was an article in the Harvard Business Review not too long ago that talked about the fact that there are no sales classes. I didn't take a sales class in the MBA program at Georgetown. Top 20 program, no MBA, no sales class. What's that about? Isn't that that's key conversion, right? Well, we're gonna keep you on the marketing and the finance and the big dollar side. Even big banks. Come on, what are stockbrokers doing? They're researching, man. When people look at funding your company and your idea that you have trademarked, they're gonna do research on you. It goes all the way down to who you are. They're buying into you, not just your company and your idea or your clothing line or your this or your that, all the things you're gonna do. I'm gonna do a fedora hat, whatever. They're gonna research you. You wanna drive a car for NASCAR or be like Lewis Hamilton in F1, what are they gonna do? They're gonna try and figure out where you've been and how you work in this car. It's called research and analysis. And guess what? Jay-Z said it best, man. Numbers don't lie. People do, right? But numbers, they're right there. Now, another thing we learned in science is, well then, what happens when you get numbers? What do they tell you? What do statistics tell you? Do they tell you anything? They tell you one thing, and that's which questions to ask. Well, what do you mean, Marcus? I mean, a stat that says 56% of this or that or the other. I want to know who you talked to, when you talked to them, what did the group look like? Was it biased, a sample biased or unbiased? What's that called? Let me see. Starts with an R. It's research, man. Research, classes you need. Again, decision sciences, any kind of statistics and probability. But you want us more focused towards your business as it relates to your brand. Man, and then when you start playing with these numbers and analytics class, please let me not forget about that. Understanding analytics and how to run the Facebook ad manager, Google SEO, etc. Because if you do that, you want to make money and not have a brand and just be a marketing person, understand SEO, understand analytics and how to put together a marketing campaign online for people. And if there isn't an analytics class, do what you can to get online to get one. And maybe that's something where you can go back and teach as a professor analytics to the kids coming up and the students coming up behind you. You know, another note that I was making when I started doing this was that research is also responsible for the shift from IG to Reels from stories. They did research and they also saw what TikTok was doing. And now they're even moving more aggressively into a world where reels and hashtags are going to be that much more important. Look, it's like this. You aren't static, meaning you aren't the same way today that you were yesterday, nor the day before, nor the way you're going to be next week. So why would you expect for your consumers to do the same? Why would you expect for the industry to do the same? It's not going to. And the only way that you can stay on top of your game is researching. Think about football. Think about sports. What do? They research what other teams are going to do. They research players to find out who would be the best fit offense or defense. Same thing with the dance troupe. Same thing with the social club. They research into who you are. Are you a fit for us? Why would you expect your customers not to do the same thing? They're going to grow. They're going to change. That means it's cyclical. So I have this term deeper, the dream, engage, environment, plan, execute, reflect. And I'm throwing that in right at the end, right? But everything in life is really cyclical. Even in this business model, it's cyclical. You have an idea, the dream, and we'll go deeper, DEEPER, dream, engage, environment, plan, execute, reflect. Idea, dream. Organizing it, that's going to be basically all these things here with engagement, being serious about it, having a great team of people around you with the environment, putting it together in a written plan, and then you go do it. and then you reflect upon it. But reflect is when you look back at the process. Reflect starts with the same letter of what everything we're talking about right now in this whole series or this whole episode. It is research. Looking at the numbers, analyzing, doing your research to figure out whether the dream, the idea worked. And if not, what you need to do in the next go round of the cycle to make sure you get closer to what your consumers want. And guess what? Are you always going to get it right? You're not. Are you going to fail? You will. You keep on going until you can't go anymore, and then do your best to kind of morph yourself into another job, into another company where maybe you're not an entrepreneur, but you become an intrapreneur, an entrepreneurial minded employee within a bigger company with more resources until you can jump back out there if that's what you so desire. This isn't just for entrepreneurs. This is for intrapreneurs. This is for you. The first thing I did in session 1 was talk about the CEO of you. And I'm just giving you the ideas that you must continue to be an industry of the industry. You have to be a student of your industry. Where can you get information, man? You get it from your analytics. You can find insights on IG. You can find your insights on Facebook and in the ad manager. They have analytic engines where you can find out what's going on in the marketplace. You can ask Google or Alexa what you want, and they will generally figure out a way to give you what you want. SBA, I'm going to say that again. The series, episode 1 of the series 2, which was leveraging the SBA for to help build your brand. I talked about the Small Business Development Center. They are very important. SBA, they have tons of resources, business plans, people, connections, networks that you can use. Your own network. If you're at a high school, you have a network. If you're at a university, you pay to have access to the teachers. Don't let any teacher tell you or professor tell you that, they don't have time for you. Again, if you call them at midnight, that may be one thing. But if they have office hours, use your network there. Hey, look, here's an idea. Here's what I was thinking. And don't go thinking that they're going to do the work for you. Don't go thinking that the SBA is going to do the work for you. You have to come with your stuff together because it's your idea. You need to organize it. You need to be engaged in it. In my engagement section, I say, write a contract with yourself saying, this is what I need to do to get where I'm going to go. Sign it and have a witness. Are you engaged in it? Show that to a professor and see how more excited they would be to help you if you're just starting. And if you're on the move, talk to them about the research that you're doing and what you're seeing in the industry and whether or not they have ways to help. I'm telling you, especially while you're in school and you can leverage that I'm a student and not a competitor. I'm not looking for your job. I just need some guidance. People will tell you just about anything. Next, and probably last, is I've just thrown about an hour of information to you. That's a lot. Take it back, break it up into sections, right? But also have people that are on your side that can help you or in your network that can help you digest, interpret, and then reinsert the research that you find and the analysis back into your marketing strategy so that you actually do, when you get to the reflection phase of deeper and you go back around to this, right? It's cyclical that way. You go back to your dream and you figure out how to refine it. They can help you understand the numbers. Do I understand the Facebook ad manager? I understand what it does. Does it make my eyes go like this? Absolutely. Do I have somebody on my team that understands how to go bloop, 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 bloop? And then we have people showing up to gigs. We have people showing up to our wine tastings. We have people showing up to our events, our dinner sips and sounds, et cetera, et cetera. Why? Because I got the right person on the team that can help me. Again, take your analytics to a professor. Take your analytics to an SBA workshop. Go to one of the schools near you that has a law school and a business school. See if there's a clinic. See if there's a student that's willing to help you. Make sure maybe they sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement if it's at that point. But there are people here to help you get where you need to go. Even your local municipality probably has a Department of Economic Development, right? Go to them, ask them. And they're probably putting on, I know in Montgomery County, Maryland, I get stuff from a guy named Julian Norman all the time about what's going on in Montgomery County related to economic development and how the county is helping to help you build your brand. You pay taxes, man. Don't complain about it. Be about it. The government ain't gonna go and do the stuff for you. You have to get out there and meet it at least halfway. And if you meet it more than that, man, it'll pay off. Then your tax dollars don't become, they're not payments, right? It's not tax liability. These are tax investments. And maybe more people in politics need to, talk about that as well. So make sure you do all you can to find out what's working and not. You're gonna have some hiccups. That's cool. Just move out of the way. Jump over them. You know what I mean? If you need to even take a break, sometimes when it's raining too hard, you have to pull over on the side of the road, right? Same thing in business. That also lets you to take an account and reflect or do your inner research to figure out what your next move may be. Get quiet. And if you follow this, man, I'm going to tell you that you can go deeper. You can be super successful. You can find whatever research. You can have new networks. And you get from the idea, protecting it, organizing it, setting up your marketing and sales and operations and management, however big or small that is, to get a consistent product that helps build your reputation and your brand and your relationships. And as I say, when you build relationships with your consumers, the brand just happens. And when you do that over time, then they take it for you and they make it the movement. Idea, organization, brand, movement, going deeper. I'm Marcus Johnson. You can find out more information from me at Marcus Johnson 360 on social media or www.marcusjohnson360.com. Thanks to Rolling Out Magazine, the RIDE Conference. I hope you enjoyed this. And now you understand that what? That research is the thing that you need to stay engaged in as much as possible so that you can continue to go deeper and build your brand, or rather, get deeper to the point where your brand starts building itself. You all take care. I love you, I love you, I love you, and always do your flow. Peace.